talk? Well, there's new research out about people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and what their brains look like. It was published in the journal Lancet Psychiatry. It's based on brain scans of over 3,000 people, making it the largest study of its kind. And it shows that people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder have distinct differences in their brain structure. Here to tell us more is Heidi Bernhardt. She is the President and Executive Director for the Centre for ADHD Awareness Canada. Hello there.
Hello.
So tell us exactly what this story shows about people who have been diagnosed with ADHD.
Well, it basically shows that there are alterations or differences in the brain. Certain areas of the brain are smaller in people with ADHD per se. So this basically shows us, or it confirms that ADHD is a real legitimate medical disorder, and everyone who's been sort of a naysayer, and basically said this is not a disorder, it's lack of parenting, too much sugar, etc., etc. There is more research, actual medical research, that backs this up now.
So the brain is actually built differently?
Yes, yeah.
How did they come to these conclusions? Tell me about how the research was done.
Well, they basically do brain imaging. They looked at over 1,700 pictures of brains of those with ADHD and over 1,500 pictures of brains of people who did not have ADHD, and then they compared the two. And they looked at specific regions of the brain to see where those differences actually occurred.
Interesting. And I understand that the brain differences were more pronounced in children than in adults.
Yes, yeah. So we've always known, or at least quite recently, but for a while, that ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. So it's the maturation or development of the brain that is delayed in people with ADHD. Now, there's the question of whether, it actually ever totally catches up, to brains that don't have, people with brains, ADHD brains, right? Whether they actually catch up with people's brains who don't have ADHD. But we know this is developmental, and kids lack in developing skills and brain functioning. So this makes total sense to us.
This seems pretty important research. How will this information help those struggling with the symptoms of ADHD?
Well, I think one of the big things this study showed is that a particular area of the brain called the amygdala, that is smaller, and this actually wasn't seen before, and that part of the brain impacts emotional regulation. So those of us who work in the field or families that live with ADHD recognize issues that children and even adults have with regulating their emotions. This actually gives us the scientific proof to explain why this is. And, a lot of kids with ADHD get into issues in the school system with being, suspended, sent down to the principal's office because of their issues with emotional regulation. They get frustrated more easily. They don't react appropriately about their frustration. They lash out, have meltdowns. We now see the part of the brain that's impacted and why this is an impairment or weakness for these kids. So we need to recognize it as a medical disorder and stop punishing these kids for this.
How does the understanding that the brain is in fact different, how would that affect decisions around medication perhaps?
We've always known that there were some differences. I don't think it really should impact that much about decisions about medication. There were some people who have some concerns that maybe when we give medication to children with ADHD, that is what alters the brain, but the study showed no difference for children who had taken medication and those who hadn't in their brain development. So we now know for sure that this should not be a concern for anyone.
How do you think this study might change some of the misconceptions that are out there about ADHD?
Well, we're constantly fighting this stigma and lack of understanding about ADHD. There are so many myths out there about ADHD, and people still questioning whether it's a legitimate medical disorder. I mean, the more research we can have to back this up that actually shows differences in the brain of those with and without ADHD, the more we have to back up, what we are telling people about ADHD.
Well, we'll be watching what happens with this research. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Heidi Bernhardt is President and Executive Director for the Centre for ADHD Awareness Canada.
Hello?
Few people have been sending me, I've been sending me emails and telling me, oh, the CBC has something about ADHD, as you just hear. Yes, I always said, ADHD is a mental disorder. Voila! There's the evidence right here. And see, the problem with ADHD is you have kids. The minute they give them Ritalin, they're labeled. They're labeled. They're labeled as an idiot. They're labeled as stupid. My father used to call me stupid all the time. Oh, you're too stupid to do this. You're too stupid to do that. Because people with ADHD speak before thinking. That's what they do. They just speak, and the stupidest thing comes out of their mouth. That's the way it is. So anyway, I'm getting flashbacks. But people with ADHD, you have to find out what they enjoy. Now, you can't put them in the classroom. In the classroom today, there's bipolar, there's autism, there's ADHD. There's so much noise in that classroom that the kids are distracted with ADHD. They can't focus. What they should have is some kind of things in the headphones that you could hear the teacher, what she's saying. Or, like the natives. I learned that when I was protesting. The native have a constructive mind. It's a mind to always to move, to be constructive, not to sit on the chair in the classroom. Put those big balloons that you could jump on and you could listen to the teacher. Let the person sit down like me. I like to lay down. When somebody is making a speech, me to sit on the chair is almost impossible. So, people with ADHD is coming out. I've been saying all along, it is a mental illness. But you find out what the person enjoys. And I'm going to tell you something right now. And I told many parents that has children with ADHD. And this is from me. Once a person if a person with ADHD, he's 20 years old, that person has a brain of a 12-year-old or 13-year-old maximum. Remember she was saying about the brain is getting more mature or whatever. 20-year-old, now just imagine that. You got a 20-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old with a mind of a 12-year-old. You got problems. So what are you going to do? You turn to alcohol, you turn to drugs, you become a menace of society. Oh wait, that's what I am. I'm not on drugs and alcohol. But you're different. But the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission held a decision held behind closed doors 13 years ago. They said that people taking Ritalin and ADHD people taking Ritalin are limited to what they could do. That's bullshit. We're not limited to do nothing. Look at the blog. look at me, and look how I go after people. Oh, that's Scottish. That's not ADHD. So anyway, that's my opinion about people with ADHD, and they have to be treated differently. But what they do here, oh yes, they arrest them, they accuse them to be pedophiles, and they put them in jail. Now there's a way to treat a person with ADHD, huh?